Okay, so I met this morning with the students of the senior year, and I started off, and some of this is going to be repetition, and some of it will be new. Um, just my own personal experience. I did not go on a trip to Eastern Europe when I was in high school. I didn't go when I was a young adult. I actually didn't go um, till 2 years ago when I went with Ramaz, and um, and to be honest, I went as more as a job. I thought it would be a nice way to spend time with the students, but I was surprised about how impactful it was to be there and to, as I mentioned this morning, I learned so much about the Holocaust. I heard so many speakers, so many survivors, read so many books and so many movies. I didn't think I would really gain more by just coming to the location where it occurred. And what I discovered was that it was really transformative to be there. And there was nothing like seeing the sights and hearing the stories that it really didn't compare to anything I experienced before. I felt very fortunate to have the opportunity to go, and I felt very, very happy for the students who had the opportunity to come. It is really meant to be, it's a way that you really, your history, you can touch your own history and your own identity. And we see the senior journey as really an exploration of our heritage, whether or not the students specifically come from Eastern Europe. A lot of students, this has been um, a signature piece of our program at Ramaz for many, many years. And, um, both the Poland part and as well as the Israel part. Another thing that I didn't appreciate before I went myself was that I didn't really understand why it was important to go to Israel. The students have been to Israel so many times, and the logic of, well, you have to go to Israel afterwards to feel like there was a little bit of a happier ending. I didn't really understand that, but I thought after going, the Israel piece really introduced something very, very important for the students, aside from the historical process of what it represents, but really a senior trip experience of bonding, of having a good time. The students really typically are able to transition from learning about their history to really just enjoying the time with each other. And I see why it's really such a critical part of the overall experience. Um, so I'm very excited to be a big part of the program now, and I think that the students will really, really benefit a lot, like they always do. I asked Hannah Tambor to join me tonight, and what I wanted to do is um, give her the chance. Hannah graduated, I believe, 2 years ago, and she had a gap year, and now she's in college. And I asked her, and I didn't really fully, script this with her, but I asked her if she can share a few reflections of what she felt like she gained from the trip, or what she might be able to offer, what she might be able to share that would be useful as you make your decisions about your children for this coming year. So um, I'd like to ask Hannah to say a few words, and if anyone has any questions, specifically for her or for me, but first for Hannah, you can definitely like type them in or ask them.
Not to be weird, but Rabbi, is it my turn?
It's your turn, Hannah.
Okay. I actually meant to do this in a different room, but I'm going through a bit of a crisis right now. My Apple Pencil went missing. Um, so we're catching me slightly off guard. And I thought I was gonna go second, but I got this anyway. Um,
Do you want a break? I can get into other things.
no, I'm going. I'm ready. Okay, hi, I'm Hannah. As Rabbi Shai had said, I graduated in 2023. After graduating, I went to Israel with Kivunim on my gap year program, and now I'm a first year student at Dartmouth College. And it's a privilege to speak with you all about my experience on my senior journey to Poland. I reflect on it as one of my most formative experiences ever. Um, I'd also like to say that I'm kind of going just kind of off script here. I have some stuff written down, but not a lot because when trying to explain, to think of how to explain, why should you go on senior journey, I couldn't figure out what like the reason was or how to explain to you like why it matters other than, like you're going and it matters. Um, so first I want to start off telling a quick story about my friend Michaela, who originally wasn't going to go on her senior journey. We ended our first session like this one, and when we walked out, she was like, "I just don't see a point in going. I don't have family in the Holocaust." She was like, "I don't really want to spend a week bussing around Poland, being depressed, seeing all the sights." Like Rabbi Shayot said, she was like, "I get the gist. Like, I don't think I need to go to Poland and do it." I had just come back from spending 2.5 weeks in Krakow, Poland, volunteering with Ukrainian refugees at the JCC, and I was obsessed with Krakow. I thought it was like this amazing place. I was so in love with the way the Jewish community was rebuilding. I thought, it was amazing to see a place just like rebuilding in the way that it is. And so I took Michaela saying that she didn't want to go to Poland as an opportunity to talk about it. And I was like, "No, Michaela, it's amazing. If you don't want to go to do the depressing stuff, just go to see the country and see how they are, taking ownership for what they did and for, the atrocities that occurred and like how they are, memorializing it. If you're not going as, like a student who wants to bear witness, just go because, you're going to see this country and it's going to show you so much." And I don't even remember what I said, but that's most of probably what I said. But I've completely forgot about the conversation afterwards until Friday night in Krakow after what was one of the most emotional nights of my entire life when she came up to me and said, "I wasn't going to go until we had that conversation, and you're the reason I went. And I'm so, so grateful." And she said, "Thank you so much for convincing me to go because this has changed my life." Um, and I tell this story not to judge anyone not going or to push going on senior journey onto anyone because I do believe that if you don't feel you're equipped to go, like don't go. Like it's not meant to be a place where you just go because everyone else is going. Like you have to want to go and be there. But I do tell this story to urge everyone to open their minds to the idea of going to Poland, to having conversations about going to Poland, to look at your peers and your classmates and say, or your fellow parents, I don't know, and say, like, why are you sending your kid or why are you going to Poland? And, what does it mean to you? Because even those conversations from the jump, they mean so much and they're going to lead you and your children and everyone else to places that you never expected to go. So just have the conversation. That's all to start off with. Um, and now for the part about going to Poland. I have so many stories in my head that I thought of saying, and they never encapsulated everything well enough. So I'm just going to throw out a couple. Um, and one of them is that, when you're there and you're visiting all the sites, you think to yourself, like, how would I have dealt with this if I were in their shoes? Like it's that inevitable thought of, what would I have done? And at every single site, I was coming up with my own escape route. We'd hear a testimony and I would think, what would I have done if I were in their shoes? And every time I'd come up with something new. And it wasn't until we got to Auschwitz-Birkenau, and for some unknown reason to me, it was at Auschwitz-Birkenau that I had this, like, epiphany that I never would have survived the Holocaust, and there were 2 reasons. 2 reasons and 2 reasons alone that I would not have made it. And the first one is that I have poor eyesight. I just have really, really bad eyesight, and that would have gotten me out in the first, I never would have survived. And the second was my piss poor attitude. I was just so negative all the time. Every anything that came up, I thought of the worst that could happen. I always had poor expectations. I expected the worst from people. I just had a very, very negative outlook on everything. And during our required journal time, I sat with my journal and I said, I can't do anything about my bad eyesight except for wear contacts. There's like really nothing I can do about that. But I can do something about my really, really bad attitude. And so when you're in Poland, you kind of realize all your faults about your life. You're like, I need to change everything about me. I complain too much. I'm not grateful enough. I have a negative attitude. You get so humbled by everything that you get and you think I have to change everything about myself. And I was having those thoughts and I was like, what am I going to do? How am I going to change my entire life? And when I realized that, this negative attitude was going to kill me eventually, I said, I can't change everything, but this is something I can change. This is something I can take control of. And I said, I'm not expecting myself to jump from negative to positive in one day, but I said, just go to neutral, like don't assume the worst. You don't need to assume the best, but just don't assume or, assume that it's going to be fine and it's not going to be terrible. Um, and then I got to take the jump from neutral to positive eventually. And feel this change in myself every single day with every single, speed bump that comes into my life. It has helped me in every single way, shape, and form. And not to talk about Israel and October 7th yet, but it helped me when my gap year program and my life, changed completely because I had expected one thing. I was supposed to leave on October 9th for Israel and stay at Stable Care and have this amazing, 2 weeks connecting to the land, and that did not happen, and I had to really quickly jump and change my expectations for the rest of my life and for the rest of my year and, for the state of Israel, and I owe how I managed that a lot to going to Poland and learning to, change my attitude and my approach to life, and it reframed my entire year and how I got to approach being part of Israel during such a tumultuous year. Um Sorry. Like I said, I'm going off script right now. Now I'm gonna go on script a little bit. This is something that I wrote, when I opened my journal for the first time thinking about what I was gonna say tonight, and I think that what I wrote then stands true now, which is that I spent a lot of high school shouldering my struggles on my own, not letting anyone in and resisting assistance from as many people as possible. Miss Bennis and Rabbi Shaiwitz can attest to that, I promise. Um, but in Poland, I learned to lean on my classmates and my teachers. I learned how to be supported, and I learned how to support in a way I never imagined I could. Poland taught me a whole new perspective on what it means to be a part of a community. And I spent my whole life at Ramaz, which means I'm well versed in Yom HaShoah assemblies and Yom HaZikaron memorials, but that does not compare for a moment to what it will mean to sing Hatikva in Majdanek or to say Mincha at an abandoned shul that's being kept open by a very old Polish man. Hearing those voices all together, it's a completely different sound. And back to Friday night in Krakow. I wish I could have had a recording of hearing the sounds of me and my classmates singing Zmir on Friday night. There was no scheduled kumsitz or singing. We were just eating, and the plan was to go. But me and a couple of classmates looked at each other and we were like, we can't just leave without singing. Like, we can't just, what are we're going to go to bed? No, that doesn't make sense. And a couple of us just started singing, and I don't remember what we started singing, but really, really quickly, everyone in the room was singing. And our voices blended together in a way I never heard. And my grade loved singing. We were a big singing grade, and I never heard us sing the way we sang that night. And I will swear that this was the first time I felt God. I believe God was in the room with me on that night. I have chills now when I'm thinking about it. I have chills every time I think about it. I felt God's presence in that room. Like I have never, it was a religious epiphany for me. I I felt God. I felt every single person that died in the Shoah that night. I felt the presence of my family. I felt the presence of my family that passed. I felt the presence of all my classmates' families in that room. I have never felt more connected to my Jewishhood, to my community, to my family, to my life, to my gratitude of being alive. I can't express to you how connected I felt to just being part of my community and being Jewish. And I don't say that to say like, oh, you're going to go to Poland and you're going to connect with your grade and it's going to be amazing and you're going to come back and you're going to wish you didn't have to graduate in 2 weeks. I say that because it has changed my perspective on what being Jewish means to me. And it has changed my perspective on how to be part of a community. And when I'm going through a hard time and when I'm struggling and, I'm on a college campus and I survived October 7th in Israel and everything, I think of that Friday night and it's a memory that hugs me and fills me with warmth and just holds me so tight. Um, the last thing I'll say is that when you, as a student, land in Israel after going to Poland, it changes your relationship with the state of Israel in a completely different way. Um, After you leave a country and 1,000 landmarks that have shown you all the different ways that Jews were told they can't be themselves, landing in a country where the language is Hebrew is like a hug that you've never felt in your entire life. You, again, like that Friday night, you can't encapsulate it. I can't explain it to you. I can't give you the feeling, but landing in Israel after coming from Poland, after coming from like the emotional turmoil of being there and not knowing what to do with all these heavy feelings, that hug that is like the air of Israel, it does not compare. And I'll tell you, my class, we got on a bus straight from Ben Gurion. We drove to the Kotel from Ben Gurion, spent 30 minutes at the Kotel, and then got on a bus and drove right back to Tel Aviv. And none of it made sense. We were all like, what are we doing? Like, why are we doing this? Why can't we just go to, and then we drove back to Jerusalem 2 hours later. We were like, this doesn't make sense. But it didn't matter that it didn't make sense because we were just so grateful and so excited to sing Am Yisrael Chai at the Kotel. Like nothing else mattered. It didn't make sense and we didn't care because we got to just go to the Kotel and sing and it was, man, that's like another, I get chills. I think about it and I'm like, oh my God, what I would give to go back to that moment. Um, Man, I could talk for hours about this. At the end of the day, I've walked away with a positive outlook and just so much gratitude. I am so, so grateful every single day. I don't know how to explain that I walk around in the most incredible sense of radical amazement at all times because I'm so grateful to be alive every day. That feeling, I can't get it from anything but being in Poland. I can try and put that in words, and I have a ton of non-Jewish friends who don't get why I'm always like, but just like look how gorgeous that tree is, say thank you. They don't get it. They're like, what do you mean? And I can't be more grateful for everything because I see what it looks like when you don't have that. And you're never gonna see that unless you do 7 days of bussing around Poland, hitting every spot as much as it like as difficult as it is, you can't get that feeling. I'm really grateful for Amaz's senior journey. I'm grateful I got to do it with my classmates, that I got to do it with the teachers that I went with, Miss Bernfeld, Miss Bennis, Rabbi Shayowitz, Dr. Milowitz, and Rabbi Weiser. And I have a million more memories that I'd love to share through Q&A, and I'll talk about post October 7th and being on a college campus and how Poland has helped that if you guys want. But all I can say is just that Poland really changed my life. And, I hope you'll let it change your children's lives as well. Thank you.
I knew I should have gone before you.
Sorry,
Uh,
Rabbi.
thank you. Wow. If we can shift to just some practical things. I don't know if Hannah wants to comment, but today when I was talking to the students, one of them sort of asked like how depressing the trip is. And well, I can tell you what I think, but maybe how would you answer that, Hannah?
Um, Me and my friends had this thing where we would call the bus Israel and off the bus Poland because the bus was really, really fun. We had so much fun and we were really embarrassed that we were having so much fun because we were supposed to be like really sad and really depressed. And we were just having too much fun. So we said that, like when we get on the bus, like we're going to Israel, and then when we get off the bus, we're back in Poland, and we went back to Poland. Like we'd get off the bus, and like all that like laughter would just go away. We would lock in, we would do what we were doing, and then we'd get back on the bus, and then we'd go back to Israel, and it'd be really great.
All right, well said. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I would answer that question exactly. I think it was really a mix of depressing and not depressing. I think that before I went, I was thinking about Poland in black and white and like every second being depressing, but it was really Poland itself is a mix. It's actually pretty, a lot of it. And this past year, Hannah wasn't there, but this past year, I remember we were like we split up into two groups and we had to meet up in this park. And one group got there earlier than the other group, and they were playing football. The boys were playing football with a water bottle. They threw it like 70 feet to each other, and they were just having fun. And not every segment is really depressing because there's also like moments in Poland where you're learning about, like Hannah mentioned, how different communities function today. And not every single thing is a death camp, but there's definitely a very heavy component to the Poland segment. And we really try to make the Israel piece much more fun. Okay, so I'm gonna jump into some of the timeline in terms of actual preparation. And okay, so God willing, on um we are leaving on Monday night, May 19th at 7:45 p.m. I'm gonna send this all to you in writing. So it's Monday night, May 19th. It is if you think about like the first 2 weeks of May are the AP weeks, and then the third Monday is the 19th. We're leaving that evening. We're landing in Warsaw on Tuesday. What we do is we travel from Warsaw to Krakow and make stops along the way. And we will be in Poland Tuesday the 20th, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Shabbos, we will be in Krakow. Um, Sunday's our last day in Poland. And then Sunday night, early Monday morning, we're going to be flying, God willing, from Krakow straight to Israel. Um, it's an early AM flight, and we were going to have so this is our traditional itinerary. It's basically like six days in Poland. That Monday morning that we're traveling from Poland to Israel is Memorial Day. It's also Yom Yerushalayim. And then we will be in Israel on Yom Yerushalayim Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Wednesday night, we're leaving on a midnight flight on El Al back to Newark, and we are landing early Thursday morning. The itinerary, the flight itinerary is really much, much better than last year, which was very difficult. But that's the plan. Compared to Hannah's year, we are adding 1 day to Israel. She had 2 days in Israel. We're gonna have 3 days in Israel and the same duration in Poland. Um, Really important piece. Everyone needs a passport to get on an airplane. Generally, your passport has to expire at least 6 months after you're going. So this is a really good time to check on that. It's not too late to renew a passport. Um, but the passport has to be current. Now, the applications are um, are due um, November 26th, and that's really around the corner because November is just in a couple of days. And the application needs to come with two components. There's a questionnaire that the students have to fill out. There's some information like their name, their phone number. Um, we really need to know everyone's name, how it's spelled on the passport, because if we have to change it later, there will be a fee. And there's a $500 deposit, which is not refundable, due with that on November 26th. Now, there is financial aid for those in need. The way to handle financial aid is to reach out directly to Kenny Rockland, and that has to be done by November 19th, but really do it earlier if you need to, so that you'll be able to finalize all the details in time to register on November 26th. The final payment will be due on January 7th. The um the okay, a word about security. Um Security is obviously a very high priority for us, both in Poland and in Israel. Um, our tour company has a Cheder Matzav, which deals with the government and the army and the internal security services to assess the security. And we travel with guards throughout in Poland and in Israel. And if there's anything that is concerning, obviously we will make adjustments to the trip, whether that means changing where we're going or um, or um, or canceling a component. Now, um, I would say I've been sort of as part of the administration involved in the trip for the past maybe 5 years. We had the COVID year where we didn't know if we were going to actually be able to go. Then we had the war in Ukraine started, and we weren't sure what was going to happen. And then we have the war in Israel on October 7th. So hopefully things will be as quiet as possible. But one thing I know for sure is I don't know the future. So there are unknowns. And this is a question that comes up a lot, and I really want to try to be as clear as possible. As a school, we will make decisions that make sense, that are really sound and well based, and really putting security of the students first. However, every person has their own comfort levels. So maybe there'll be a ballistic missile attack. That sounds like science fiction, but now that's like sort of like um, something which happens. So there might be an attack, or maybe tensions will rise, and we will decide that we could still go, but a parent might be still uncomfortable. So that's a scenario that can happen. But in the past couple of years, there were, I would say, I don't know, maybe like between one and two or three people who decided to cancel because they felt uncomfortable, which is everyone's prerogative. So what I want you to understand is that um, you know, we have these deadlines, and the the uh, the deposit is not refundable, um, and the once the payment is made in January, it's not refundable. People could take out travel insurance separately to insure it, and the terms of each insurance company, whether you're canceling for a reason or for not for a reason, that's just not something that we could manage. So I really recommend you doing that. What we've done in the past is someone had to cancel. Um, if there's something that we'll end up getting back, like if we'll get an LL credit, we will definitely pass it along. But once the dates are passed, we'll only be able to say, well, after the trip is over, we'll see what we're able to recover and pass it along. We're not looking to make money on people who have to cancel later on, but we also, we're not actually a travel agency, so we really, when we say these are the deadlines, because we already made financial commitments already, and we'll be making further ones along the way, so we can't really just refund. So I hope everyone understands that there's certain unknowns. We will be as careful as we always are, and people have the opportunity to make their own decisions as well. And that's sort of, I think, the best way that you should think about it. The let me see what else I have for you. Um, okay, so I think that in terms of who should go on this trip, who should go on this experience, I really do think that it's for most students. Um, mo every year, the majority of the class has gone. A significant majority, maybe three quarters, 80%, something like that. There are multiple reasons why someone might choose not to go. And I want to just bring some to your attention. One is medical. Some students have very specific medical needs. So in Poland, especially when we're in between Warsaw and Poland and Krakow, which is most of the week, we're not necessarily going to be close to um, medical facilities. We're going to be sleeping, in these small towns in between. So those people who need, have very, I'm not saying, I don't know if anyone in this grade in that situation, but if there are actual medical needs, then um, that's one thing to really consider, whether this is something which is possible. We definitely have a medic with us, and we definitely would take someone to a hospital if needed, of course. But those who have a lot of medical needs should be considering whether they can go. Um, how intense is the schedule is a really important question and a hard question to quantify. Um, I don't want to overstate it, and I don't want to understate it. And we get up early, we have a full day, and we go to sleep kind of late every day. I don't want to say that it's like we sleep for 3 to 4 hours. That's not the case. Most days we're in bed at like 11, and then we're out at like 7. So, I mean, you're getting some sleep, but it's not the kind of situation where you come to your room at like 7:30, 8, 9 o'clock, you hang out with your friends, and you get like 9 hours of sleep. It's an intense program. Um, it's not the kind of situation where someone could like sleep late one day because um, we're on the move and we're going. So it has to, kids who go really have to be able to to handle a pretty rigorous itinerary where you're not necessarily, you might be tired, kids sleep on the bus sometimes, um, but you have to be able to manage that. I don't want to say that if a student comes late to class, obviously they can't keep a schedule and they won't be able to make it on the bus on the trip. I don't want to overstate that, but those who have trouble really following directions, um, keeping to a schedule, coming on time, people who need to be like in their own space, um, should consider whether they're up for it. Um, Also, I don't consider the experience to be like it's not like going to a guided tour of a museum where someone's a tour guide is just like lecturing the whole time. It's really very, very hands-on. You're walking around, you're seeing, but we have these amazing guides, thank God, who have been guiding us for the past few years, and they're, God willing, planning to come again. And they're very, very engaging, and they explain things and they connect with the students. But there are sometimes students who just can't listen, and they start wandering. There's a year when we were in Krakow on a walking tour, and it was at night, and the guide is like showing them something, and like a kid is like sort of like wandering away and like kind of wants to check out like a store across the street. And I'm like, you can't just wander away. You really need to stay with the group. You need to if you need to be able to listen to a guide. So I think that students need to think about if they're up for it. Another question that we get very often is students who plan to go on a gap year um, next year. So some of the schools do a trip to Poland, and I think that their itinerary is probably roughly similar. So, um, so there's a decision. Do you want to go this year with Ramaz with the senior grade, or do you want to skip it this year and go next year with a seminary, or a yeshiva? So, um, I don't really have an answer of what's a better experience. I think that they're both great. They're they're different from one another. The kids in the year in Israel are older, they're more mature, but it's also more informative in certain ways to go now. It's more of a culmination of high school. So they each have their pluses and minuses. And there's a there's a timing issue where maybe they don't know exactly where they're going to end up in school by the time November 26th comes, and they have to make a decision about our trip. So um, I just say I don't have an answer, but think about that, um, and and um, and try to figure it out. But also, let's say a student knows they're going to one of two schools. They should also know every school goes to Poland. They don't all go at the same time. Some go before Pesach, some go in February, some go in November. So just if that's a consideration, I would just like try your best to like make a decision, because it's very hard. Like sometimes kids wake up in April and they're like, I kind of want to cancel. And it's very hard, like I mentioned before, for us to cancel, to change the amount of people going, and to get if people want refunds. Um, Okay. There's a there's there's an orientation evening in May, which is going to be May 8th at in the in the afternoon. We did it. We're doing it in the late afternoon at 3:45 to 5. So it's not really an evening, it's an afternoon. The reason why we're doing it in the afternoon is because it's like much easier for the students, and hopefully parents can come as well. I'll tell you more about that later, but I wanted to just mention that. There's also the the preparation that we do for the senior journey. This is another thing that we sort of changed in the past couple of years. Um, it used to be that we called it Poland Prep, and it was a number of sessions in the 2 weeks before the Poland trip in order to give the students like a lot of background information to understand what was happening in the trip. And what we did last year, and we're going to do again this year, is to spread it over the whole year and include the whole grade, because most of what that preparation is really relevant to everybody, whether or not they're going on this specific trip. So, so it includes talks from the history department explaining the historical context of the Holocaust, interwar Poland, and our students really come, and the guides are like asking questions. They know what they're talking about, which is amazing. But the what we call the Jewish Heritage course is not only about the context of the Holocaust, it's also about Sephardic Jewry. It's about they learn from the history department about Sephardic communities, and we also have um, Holocaust survivors who speak, and we also have people who come from Sephardic countries talking about their experience growing up. And we also watch movies like Schindler's List. So there's this whole, so we call, and also the students have to do, they have one assignment for this course, which is to learn their own heritage, like where their grandparents came from, how they got here. So it's really an exploration of Jewish heritage, how we got to where we are over the past, um, I don't know, 100 years or so. So that's something that's going to be taking place over the year in sessions, and that is what we used to call Poland Prep, but we call it Jewish Heritage, which is for everyone. Okay. Um, I think that hits the main things. Let me just see. Oh, um, um, yeah, honestly, I'm really, last year it sort of worked out with Israel, but yeah, we're very conflicted about the October 7th piece. Like, we want them to see some important sites related to October 7th. We also don't want to make it Holocaust Trip 2.0. So Israel definitely has a lot of like fun activities. It definitely emphasizes chesed more than anything, because through chesed, it's positive, it's constructive, it's fun, it's meaningful, but it also connects to meaning and not just um, regular fun. But we also do some regular fun things also in Israel. But we will definitely see, I don't know how much, but a couple of things related to October 7th. Um, we anticipate, the last thing is I didn't mention that we anticipate that this I will send it to you, but we anticipate the total cost to be, I believe it was $5,075. And actually, the very last thing that I really want to mention is that there's some really great books that I think would be great for students and maybe parents also to read with their kids. We're gonna give the kids the book "The Choice" by Edith Eger, which I think is a really great book, which gives a lot of insight into the experience in the Holocaust. There are other really powerful books. We're trying to introduce more and more of them into our curriculum. The Choice is really based on Man's Search for Meaning, which, if they haven't read, I think would be really great to read. Um, and there's other books that would be really nice for students to sort of engage. Like, we gave him the choice last year, and obviously, like every reading, there's a choice of whether to read it or not. And the ones who did really, I think, benefited a lot. So, I think that like putting it on your consciousness and having it as part of the conversation, and maybe, as a family also sort of participating in their mental planning, would be meaningful. Okay, I'll pause here. Um, I will send you basically a written format of all the key points that I made, and also the recording of this presentation. And if you have any questions, you can ask me now, or you can ask me at any time. But I really, really, really appreciate you coming on and engaging with us, and really just taking part in the process of making a thoughtful decision about what to do. Thank you.
By Hannah's, is she still on or is she off? I think she's off.
Hi, I'm here.
That was incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going anyway, so you didn't have to sell me, but that was really, thank you for sharing that, and also sharing so much of yourself. That was really, really powerful. And I also just want to thank Rabbi Shaiwitz, who's putting in a tremendous amount of work on this. And I very much look forward to being to being a part of this. And my job is to just have a lot of Hakarat Tov to Rabbi Shaiwitz and to Miss Ben for all they're putting in for the senior year. So thank you. And